Thank you for being here with me. May your journey be illuminated by truth and peace. Today I want to share my story with you. My name is Gabriel Costa, and I need to share something that forever altered the course of my life. On June 4th, 2024, I died. This wasn't a brush with death. It was the real thing. I had gone on a hike through the mountains when I was ambushed by a wild creature. The pain, the fear, and the sense of helplessness are etched in my memory. But death wasn't the end of my story. What happened afterward is something that needs to be understood. I crossed into a different realm, beyond anything that can be explained in words. There, I encountered someone extraordinary, Jesus. He revealed to me the truths of life, death, and the future. Now I have to tell you everything. It started as a normal Sunday. I woke up early, as I always do, just as the first light began creeping through the window around 5:45 a.m. The soft golden rays danced across my bedroom, giving everything a serene glow. I had been planning this hike for weeks, a solo trek up Redstone Mountain, my favorite place for reflection. It was where I felt the most at peace. I grabbed my small backpack, packed with just the essentials: a water bottle, a protein bar, and a basic first aid kit. "Be safe, Gabriel," my wife Anna said as I tightened my boots at the door. Her voice was calm, but there was a slight edge of worry. "It's just a short hike," I reassured her with a smile. I kissed her, and then our son, Luca, who was engrossed in a video game in the living room. He barely looked up as I told him I'd be back in a few hours. That was the last time I saw them before everything changed. The trail was peaceful when I arrived. The trees stood tall and still, their leaves swaying gently in the wind. I could hear the birds singing and the distant sound of a stream. The air was fresh and it filled my lungs as I began my hike. There was a sense of freedom in each step I took. For about an hour, everything felt perfect, like the world was in balance. Then, something changed. The forest, once full of life, grew eerily quiet. No birds, no insects, just an unsettling silence. A knot formed in my stomach, but I pushed it aside, convincing myself it was nothing. Then came the sound, a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the trees. My heart skipped a beat as I turned slowly, trying to locate the source. And there it was, a massive black bear only 20 feet away, its piercing eyes locked on me. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to move, but my body didn't respond. "Easy," I whispered to myself, trying to back away slowly while avoiding direct eye contact. My heart pounded in my chest so loudly I could hear it in my ears. But before I could get any further, the bear lunged. I turned and ran as fast as my legs would carry me, adrenaline surging through my body. Behind me, I could hear the bear crashing through the underbrush, its heavy paws thudding against the ground. My legs burned with the effort, and every step felt like it might be my last. I glanced back once, but only for a moment. That's when I tripped over a root, hitting the ground hard. Pain exploded through my body as I tried to push myself up, but before I could make it, the bear was on me. Its massive paws pinned me to the forest floor. I felt its jaws close around my arm, the sharp teeth sinking into my flesh. A scream tore from my throat as pain coursed through my body. I fought back with everything I had, but it was futile. The bear's claws shredded through my chest, tearing my skin and clothing. Blood soaked my shirt as I gasped for breath, my vision starting to blur. I knew in that moment I was dying. Then, everything went numb. The pain faded, not in an instant, but slowly, like a fog lifting after a storm. My breathing grew shallow, my vision constricted, and the world around me seemed to slip away. I could feel my heartbeat slowing, the life draining out of me. And then, just like that, everything stopped. I was no longer in my body. Instead, I was floating, observing the scene below. I could see my lifeless form sprawled out on the ground, the bear sniffing at my body before slowly turning away. Blood pooled around me, soaking into the earth, but I was no longer part of it. I watched in awe as the bear disappeared into the trees, and I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. Was this it? I thought. Was I really gone? Expecting darkness, I instead began to rise. It wasn't a gradual ascent, but more as if an unseen force was pulling me upwards. My body, my existence, everything below me became blurred. I was weightless, drifting higher and higher. Then I heard it. A voice, soft yet commanding, breaking through the stillness. "It's not over yet." I turned, my heart racing in anticipation. There in the distance I saw him, a figure bathed in light standing in front of me. He was tall, his robes glowing with an ethereal brilliance, and his eyes, they weren't human. They were vast like galaxies, stars swirling within them. "I am Jesus," he said. The sound of his voice reverberated through every part of me. His presence was unlike anything I had ever felt. My soul, my very being felt drawn toward him like the light was pulling me in. "You are not done," Jesus said, his voice resonating within me. His words weren't just heard, they were felt, deep within my spirit. "You've been called." "I don't understand," I stammered, my voice shaking. Before I could process what was happening, it was as if I was no longer walking or floating. I was being drawn toward him. My physical form was gone. I existed now only as pure consciousness, and the world around us dissolved into light. Everything around us faded, and it was as if the universe itself had opened up. Jesus reached out his hand, and as soon as I touched it, I was overwhelmed. Waves of warmth, peace, and clarity washed over me, and in that instant I saw something, a vision of the future. It wasn't like watching a film. It was as though I was moving through layers of reality. One moment I was surrounded by brilliant light, and the next I was enveloped in complete darkness. But it wasn't frightening. It was peaceful, tranquil, like the calmness before a storm. I floated in this stillness, weightless, aware of everything, yet free from the confines of a physical body. Then, from the distance, a faint light began to glow, growing larger and brighter with every passing second. It was Jesus again, his presence both overwhelming and gentle. "Andrew," Jesus said, his voice not just heard by my ears but absorbed by my soul. His presence was powerful, but there was no fear in it, only absolute truth and love. "I know you don't understand, but you will." The light around us began to shift, and I could see something that defied all logic. Threads of light weaving through the air, connecting everything, people, places, events. I could see how every decision created ripples, how the smallest action had consequences that reached far beyond anything I could imagine. "Time is not what you think it is," Jesus explained. "It's not linear, it's layered." Suddenly the light around us opened like a window, and I saw the world, our world, but not as it is now. I saw cities rise and fall, storms, moments of peace and breakthroughs. I saw people turning toward God and others turning away from him. "You have a choice," he said, and I could feel the weight of those words. Humanity has a choice. I drifted with him through what felt like different dimensions, watching the world from above, the planet slowly turning beneath us. Points of light flickered like stars all over the earth. "What are they?" I asked. "Prayers," he replied. Then I saw something dark, shadows spreading over certain areas of the earth, as though they were eating away the light. It felt cold, empty. "This," Jesus said, "is what happens when faith dies, when people turn away from the truth." I saw the future stretch out before me. 9 years ahead, the world teetering on the brink of something massive. Nations were rising and falling. People were searching for answers, and technology advanced at a pace that was almost unimaginable. But amidst all this progress, darkness was growing too. "Faith will either rise or collapse," Jesus said. I could feel the weight of those words, a tension in the air as if everything hinged on a single decision, a single moment. I could see the world's struggles, the increasing division, the growing unrest, but I also saw light, flickering in pockets across the earth. Suddenly I felt a pull, as though something was drawing me back. "You need to tell them," Jesus said. "The future is still being written." And just like that, I began to fall. The light around us twisted, bending and stretching until it formed a massive panoramic window, and what I saw next defied everything I had ever known. It was like watching a living movie, but it was more than just a visual experience. I could feel it, hear it, almost taste it. The energy of millions of people, their thoughts, their emotions filled the air. It was overwhelming. "You're going to see the truth," Jesus said. "Not just about the future, but about why it happens." The first thing I saw was the earth, turning slowly beneath me. The swirling clouds and shifting oceans, a constant beautiful reminder of life. But there was something unnatural about it, something unsettling. Dark patches were spreading across the continents like smoke or shadows creeping over the surface. "These are the consequences of mankind's choices," Jesus said quietly, his voice heavy with sorrow. Then I saw people, ordinary people, walking through cities, their faces blank and lost. They were connected to machines, to devices, yet there was an emptiness in their eyes. It was as if technology had consumed them, but not in a way that brought fulfillment. I saw politicians speaking to massive crowds, their words stirring anger and division. Tensions were rising, and the air felt thick with fear, confusion, and resentment. "Technology will advance rapidly," Jesus said, "but it will not bring peace. Humanity will search for answers in the wrong places, forgetting the true source of wisdom." Then the vision shifted again. I saw a new, more sinister force growing beneath the surface, hidden in plain sight, moving through governments, corporations, and even religious institutions. It was deception, spreading like wildfire, wrapping around everything it could control. "A new form of control will rise," Jesus said, his voice full of warning. "It will be masked as progress, and many will follow it willingly." The vision shifted again, and this time I saw the world plunged into chaos. Wars broke out across continents, some sparked by political differences, others over resources. The world seemed to be crumbling under the weight of its own divisions. A massive conflict was unfolding in the Middle East. Nations were amassing armies, and tensions escalated rapidly. A single spark set off a chain reaction. Explosions rocked major cities, and civilians were running for their lives. Leaders scrambled to respond, but it was too late. As the scene unfolded before me, I saw the faces of ordinary people caught in the crossfire. Mothers shielding their children, soldiers torn between duty and sorrow, the fear and hopelessness in their eyes palpable. "There will be wars," Jesus said, his voice heavy with grief, "and many will suffer." I saw leaders gathered in huge conference halls, shouting across tables, pointing fingers and making threats. They couldn't hear each other. No one was listening. The division was so deep that it seemed impossible to repair. Then I saw the streets of America filled with protesters. People were chanting, carrying signs, and clashing with one another. The division in the country had reached a point of no return, and the media was fueling the fire, turning every disagreement into an unbridgeable gap. "Division will weaken nations," Jesus said, "and the enemy will take advantage of that weakness." The earth itself began to react, as if it too was reflecting the turmoil within humanity's heart. Earthquakes shook major cities, massive storms devastated coastlines, wildfires consumed entire forests, and floods wiped out towns. The planet seemed to be groaning under the weight of the destruction. "Creation reflects the state of human hearts," Jesus said solemnly. "It's not just the people, it's everything." I saw desperate people searching for answers, but they were looking in all the wrong places. Politicians, celebrities, New Age spiritual leaders, they all offered solutions, but none pointed to God. The truth was being hidden, but it wasn't lost. Not yet. "The truth will be hidden," Jesus said, "but not lost." The vision shifted again. I saw massive cities rising up from the ashes, futuristic skyscrapers, drones filling the skies, and AI controlling everything. People were merging with technology, implants beneath their skin allowing them to connect to networks without needing devices. It was a new world, one that looked so advanced, so perfect, but there was a deep emptiness behind it all. People were becoming more connected than ever, yet more disconnected from each other. I saw a young man, sitting alone in a dark room, staring at a holographic screen projected from his hand. He was completely cut off from the world. His thoughts were being monitored, manipulated by the very systems that had promised convenience. "Freedom will be traded for comfort," Jesus said quietly, "and the cost will be great." Then, I saw something that filled me with dread. Military forces were using this new technology. Soldiers enhanced with cybernetic implants, their strength and reflexes now superhuman. But their humanity was fading. They were no longer fully human, and the cost of these advancements was their very souls. "There will be breakthroughs," Jesus said, "but at the cost of the soul." The vision shifted once more. I saw a man standing on a massive stage, speaking to the world. His words were calm, his smile perfect, too perfect. The people adored him. They hung on his every word, believing that he was the answer to their prayers. "This will be the rise of false leadership," Jesus said. "Many will see him as a savior, but he will not lead them to the truth." The world was on the edge of something much darker than they realized. I saw the Earth's atmosphere shifting, storms growing stronger, and wildfires threatening entire regions. Hurricanes ravaged coastlines, tsunamis swallowed islands, and the temperature of the planet was rising at an alarming rate. "The Earth is shifting," Jesus said, "and these are signs." In the midst of the devastation, I saw people. They were gathered together, praying in small circles, hands held in unity, songs of worship filling the air. Their faith was a shield, and as they prayed, the destruction around them seemed to fade. "The prayers of the faithful will create pockets of protection," Jesus said, "but they must stand together." I saw the stars, shifting and aligning in ways I had never seen before. It was as if the heavens themselves were declaring the truth. "The heavens will declare the truth," Jesus said, "but few will have eyes to see." Suddenly, the scene before me became chaotic again. Meteors streaked across the sky, but some were stopped mid-air by beams of light. It was like God's hand was at work, intervening, protecting. "God's hand will still be at work," Jesus said, "even when darkness comes." The destruction continued. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and massive storms ravaged the planet. But amidst all this chaos, there were places of light, cities surrounded by supernatural shields like transparent domes of energy. Angels stood guard at the borders of these places, their swords drawn, protecting the faithful from the darkness that sought to consume them. "The prayers of the righteous will protect the cities," Jesus said, "but only where faith remains strong." I saw healings taking place, blind eyes opening, paralyzed limbs straightening, cancer disappearing in an instant. It was as if the very fabric of reality was being altered by the power of prayer. "Miracles will increase," Jesus said, "but only where faith allows it." Then I saw a man standing before a massive crowd, raising his hand. The people fell silent, their eyes fixed on him. He spoke of love, peace, and unity, but there was something in his eyes, a coldness and emptiness that didn't match his words. His message seemed perfect, but there was a darkness behind it all. "This is the false savior," Jesus said, his voice full of sorrow. "He will promise salvation, but it will cost them their souls." I could feel the weight of his words. This figure would deceive millions, leading them down a path that seemed safe, but would ultimately lead to destruction. The people, desperate for answers, would follow him blindly, not seeing the true cost of their choice. The vision shifted again, and I saw the earth being torn apart. Massive storms formed on the horizon. Earthquakes shattered cities, and the oceans began to rise, swallowing coastlines. In the midst of the chaos, I saw the people, the faithful, gathering together, praying, and as they prayed, the storms halted. The winds died down, the waters receded, and the destruction stopped in its tracks. "The prayers of the faithful will hold back the storm," Jesus said, "but the battle will not be won with weapons. It will be fought with faith." The vision shifted once more, and I saw a new scene unfold. It was quiet at first, the stillness before dawn. But slowly, pockets of light began to form across the earth. Small, bright spots of energy that grew stronger with each passing moment. I saw people gathering, no longer in large churches or public places, but in homes, fields, and city streets. They were coming together to pray, to worship, to seek God. These weren't people driven by fear. They were driven by something deeper: hope, faith. There was an urgency in their voices, but it was a hopeful urgency, not one of despair. I saw young people, some of them putting down their phones, others lifting their hands to the sky in prayer. Tears ran down their faces as they spoke in tongues, just like in the book of Acts. And in that moment I saw miracles. Real, undeniable miracles. A blind man touched his eyes, and his vision returned. A woman who had been confined to a wheelchair for years suddenly stood up and walked. Tumors dissolved right before my eyes and paralyzed limbs straightened. Deaf ears were opened, The Spirit of God was being poured out. "This is the great awakening," Jesus said, his voice full of joy. "It has been prophesied, and now it will come to pass." But even as the light grew stronger, the darkness grew more aggressive. I saw shadowy figures creeping toward the circles of light, whispering lies into the ears of those who prayed. Some stood firm, but others wavered, doubt creeping into their hearts. "Not all will withstand it," Jesus warned. "Some will turn back when the pressure increases." I saw government leaders rising to try and control the awakening. Laws were passed to restrict public gatherings, especially those focused on prayer and worship. Churches were forced to register with the state, and preachers were arrested for refusing to comply with the new mandates. But even in the darkest moments, the underground church began to grow stronger. In the midst of it all, Jesus said, "In the darkest hour, my people will shine brightest." I saw families torn apart. Some embraced the awakening with open hearts, while others rejected it, choosing comfort over truth. Friendships were fractured. Cities became battlegrounds, not of flesh and blood, but of spirit and truth. "The battle will not be fought with weapons," Jesus said. "It will be fought with faith." I saw a man standing before the world, his smile hollow, offering power and influence in exchange for loyalty. He was offering the world wealth, peace, and a false sense of security. "You will be tempted," Jesus warned. "The enemy will try to silence you." I watched as the enemy's influence spread. People began to accept the mark, the implant that allowed them to buy and sell without physical money. At first it seemed harmless, but I saw the truth. The mark would control them, their decisions, their thoughts. The price for convenience was their freedom. "They will give up their freedom for security," Jesus said, "and they will be controlled." The persecution began soon after. Those who refused the implant were ostracized, cut off from society. Their bank accounts were frozen, access to hospitals and schools was denied, and even their friends and families turned against them. "The enemy will use fear to divide," Jesus said, his voice heavy with sorrow. I saw churches being raided by armed soldiers, Bibles burned in the streets, pastors dragged from their pulpits in handcuffs. The message was clear: submit or suffer. But even in the face of this oppression, I saw pockets of resistance. Underground churches, secret gatherings, where people met in candlelit rooms, forests, and basements. Their worship was raw, desperate, but it was powerful. "This is the separation," Jesus said. "The wheat and the tares. The faithful will remain, but many will fall away." The darkness continued to spread, even infiltrating the church itself. I saw some leaders aligning with the new system, preaching unity under the false leader, while others resisted and were silenced. "This is the false prophet," Jesus said. "They will lead many astray." But even as the enemy's influence grew, I saw a light in the distance. The darkness was thick, but it couldn't extinguish the light completely. The faithful, though few, stood firm, their prayers holding back the tide. The sky darkened, and strange lights appeared in the atmosphere. Governments called them visitors, claiming they had come to help humanity. But I knew it was a lie. "This is the final deception," Jesus warned. "The world will believe what it sees, but not what is true." Then I saw a new layer of reality, the spiritual realm, where angels and demons battled unseen. Massive angelic beings stood with swords of pure fire, their wings stretching across continents. They had been waiting for this moment. "This is the war beyond human sight," Jesus said. Demonic forces began to rise, their forms cloaked in shadow, twisting unnaturally. They moved like smoke, infecting the atmosphere with their darkness. "Human choices fuel this war," Jesus said. "Every prayer in faith strengthens the angels. Every act of fear, doubt, or hatred creates cracks through which darkness slips." I saw the power of prayer firsthand. Each time someone prayed in faith, a beam of light shot into the sky, strengthening the angels. Darkness was pushed back. But when fear, doubt, or hatred took hold, cracks appeared in the spiritual realm, allowing the enemy to slip through. The battle intensified, but I also saw moments of light, prayers breaking chains, demons being driven back by waves of divine energy. The faithful held their ground, but the struggle was fierce. Cities, surrounded by supernatural shields, stood protected. These shields were a direct result of the prayers of the righteous. The angels stood guard, their swords drawn, repelling the forces of darkness that tried to break through. Miracles became more frequent as the faithful prayed. I saw the sick healed, blind eyes opened, and people freed from addictions without explanation. I saw entire villages saved from starvation by a single act of faith. The Spirit of God moved powerfully, but only where faith allowed it. But even in the midst of these miracles, the darkness fought back. I saw cities being shaken, nations rising and falling, and the earth itself groaning under the weight of humanity's choices. Yet in the darkest moments there was always light, a light that could not be extinguished. The miracles will increase, Jesus said, but only for those with the faith to receive them. The vision shifted again, and I saw a final scene unfold. It was as if time had slowed. The world, shaken by chaos and destruction, suddenly fell silent. The clouds parted, and a pure golden light descended from the heavens, breaking through the darkness. It cut through the smoke-filled skies, and the earth trembled beneath the weight of its power. This light struck the earth with such force that it rippled across continents. Cities on the verge of collapse began to heal. Fires that had consumed entire cities were extinguished. Rubble shifted and reformed into something new. Broken people stood tall, healed in the presence of God's power. The angels descended from the light, their massive forms landing among the people. They carried swords made of light, striking the ground with power that shook the earth. "This is divine intervention," Jesus said. "When darkness rises, heaven responds." The world, devastated and torn apart, was now beginning to heal, but it wasn't over. The battle continued. Jesus turned to me and said, "What happens next depends on the choices they make." And then I saw my family, Anna, Luca, and I, standing together. Though we had been separated by death, I knew I was going to return to them. My journey wasn't over. The message I had received from Jesus would be shared, no matter the cost. "You will carry this message to the world," Jesus said, "but many will doubt you. Faith is not easy, but your family, your community, will grow in strength because of what you will endure." As the light faded, I felt myself falling back into the physical world. I knew I would face challenges, doubts, and temptations, but I also knew my purpose was clear. And so, my journey continued. Not just as a man, but as a messenger of the truth. I'm glad you got this far. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss more content like this. May God bless you and keep you, and may you have an open heart for everything He has for you. Until the next video, see you tomorrow.